Garcia Vega in this video. So the media industrial complex has gone on a contingent to try to censor and silence progressives who actually want to challenge the deep state, who actually want to challenge the status quo in Washington. And this is exactly what CNN and the media industrial complex has done to Jamal Bowman twice. And they also did this when he was on the air with Cori Bush. But the first time they did this, he's talking about Rahm Emanuel and how he would be a devastating pick for Joe Biden to place in his cabinet, because when Rahm Emanuel was the mayor of Chicago, he actively covered up and tried to hide evidence in the Laquan McDonald murder. So his name was being floated around by the Biden administration to have him placed in his cabinet. And since then, these talks have actually gone down, and it's actually starting to look like Biden's not going to put him in his administration. But when he was initially talking about it, it was starting to raise alarm and a lot of questions of why he would place such a person in his cabinet. And Rahm Emanuel, he's someone who's been a part of the deep state, someone who's been a part of corrupt nepotism, cronyism politics. He's been a part of that type of Washington. He served under the Obama administration, and then after he served in the Obama administration, he became the mayor of Chicago. And this is what they do. After they serve in cabinets and administrations, they often go on to try to be public servants themselves, try to go on to Democratic cities or Democratic strongholds to run these cities and places for as long as they possibly can, so that when the time comes, when you have another presidential race coming up, another Democratic primary coming up, you can have those people's endorsements and you automatically get free airplay from those type of people when they're actually public servants themselves in different areas and places. You actually pick up their voters and their base when you need their endorsement or when you seek their endorsement. This is how the establishment, the deep state, and cronyism continues throughout multiple administrations, throughout multiple presidential candidates, just throughout the whole entire federal government. And right when Jamal Bowman is going into it, the CNN feed cuts. It cuts away from him. Not like to where it was a network or a connection issue or anything like that, but deliberately, the broadcast was pulled away from him, cut away from him as he's getting ready to go into Rahm Emanuel and how he's a devastating pick for our country. Feed just automatically cuts away out of nowhere. And then once this happens, CNN, they make no effort to try to connect back with him. They don't want to connect back with him. They didn't want him to thoroughly finish his point, to get the point across to the viewer of how he's such a devastating pick, calling out the deep state, calling out the status quo for what it is. But here's the exchange where CNN, they pull their broadcast away from Jamal Bowman because they don't want him to get his point across. They don't want him to actually finish what he's getting ready to allude to, what he's about to go into, getting ready to expose corruption at its finest, basically.
So far, do you see anyone that's progressive enough for you?
Well, first, let me say off the top, thank you so much for having me. When I hear names like Rahm Emanuel being floated as part of Biden's cabinet, considering the fact that he covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald in Chicago, considering the fact that he closed over 50 elementary schools and 30 mental health institutions, it's incredibly alarming and
So we lost the congressman-elect there. Sorry about that. We'll try to bring him back at some other point.
And I believe they purposely pulled away from his broadcast. I don't think they wanted him to finish his point. It's clear. And then on top of that, they never went back to him so that he could finish making his point. You see, the media industrial complex, they don't even try to hide it because that's how much they think of you, the viewer. That's how much they think of everyday Americans. They don't even try to hide it. They're literally an extension of the establishment deep state apparatus of the Democratic Party. That's exactly what entities like that are. That's what they represent. And this is how Joe Biden won the Democratic primaries. That's how he won the primaries, them propping and propelling Joe Biden up, making the everyday viewer, the everyday consumer of this content, of this media, believe that he's the only person that could possibly beat Donald Trump. He's the only electable person just because. And then the same thing occurs again. The same thing happens again when then Jamal Bowman goes on there with Cori Bush and they ask the two of them, are they going to be voting for Nancy Pelosi for speaker, for the speakership? Will they be voting for her? And they basically don't give an answer. They basically give indirect answers that lead one to believe that they wouldn't be placing their votes for them. But My advice to progressives, don't be afraid to actually state your positions on a national platform. Why would you be afraid to state your actual position? You know you're not voting for Nancy Pelosi. You know she's a terrible, horrendous pick. So why not actually speak your conscience, actually tell your voters, tell everyday Americans what needs to happen to stop this corrupt deep state cronyism that's happening in the United States Congress, and now that's about to be happening in the White House for many more years. They try to pressure them into basically coming out to the answer, into the conclusion that the media industrial complex wants to see, that they want to hear. They try to pressure them and try to get them to that point, try to get them to that aspect, but the both of them, they just never cave. Like I said, I would have liked them to have better answers, to have really eluded more with what they want to see in terms of America, in terms of challenging the status quo in Congress, in terms of weeding out the deep state all throughout the State Department, all throughout the Pentagon, just in all of our national security agencies and entities. Get that strategized and start enacting policies that put the people first, like taking away Citizens United, any type of super PAC that can donate to political candidates, not necessarily directly, but in the form of campaign ads, which is just an extension of their campaign. Take away those type of things to where corporations can't buy our politicians. Take away bribery in politics in terms of rich people being able to bribe political candidates and foresee the America that they want to see. Actually state all this stuff when you're on a national platform. Don't be afraid to go into what you actually want to see in terms of America. That's the only thing, and that's where they dropped the ball at. But other than that, I love the way they handled themselves. I love the way they answered their questions. And here goes the exchange.
And real quick, before I let you both go, looking ahead at that you're both going to have to vote on, which is the Speaker of the House, Congresswoman-elect Bush. Will you vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker?
What I'm going to do is make sure that the voices of the people of St. Louis are heard and that we have what we need. And so you'll find out then.
That's not a yes.
I'm working with my community. I'm working with my community.
Okay. And Congressman-elect Bowman, will you vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker?
So you will find out when my vote is tallied, and again, organizing with our community to figure out what's best.
The moderator, Dana Bash, she's trying to pressure them. She's trying to get them to get to the answer, to the conclusion that the media industrial complex, like I said, wants to see and wants to hear. And they didn't do that. They're not pleasing them. So it makes me wonder how many more progressives the media industrial complex will bring on. Because the vast majority of Americans, they all agree with the progressive cause, the progressive initiatives, all the progressive policies that we care about. The American people agree. When you just really start breaking everything down, subject by subject, policy by policy, people actually all agree with progressives at the end of the day. Even folks that say they're hardcore right-wingers, people who are Republicans, folks of the Trump base. And this is how Trump knows that Sanders would have been a real problem for him had he had faced him, because Bernie actually appeals to those type of Trump voters, to that white working class voter, that blue collar voter. Bernie Sanders appeals to those type of voters. Trump knew that a person like Bernie Sanders was going to be a real problem. The American people overwhelmingly agree with the progressive cause. So don't be afraid to actually express yourself and express your position and what you want to see in America. Guys, do me a favor right now. Hit that notification bell. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Peace.